What's up, everybody? So today we're meal prepping some barbecue pork chops, roasted potatoes, and some string beans. Are you ready to do this? Let's get started. Alright, so today we're going to be using some pork tenderloins. If you saw my last video where I did the pork bowls, then you know that I had bought about almost 7 pounds of meat. So I have another 3.5 pounds of pork chops with the bone in. I already took the fat off, but let's go ahead and assemble the seasonings, marinate this, and get it in the oven to cook. So let's go over the seasonings that we're going to be using today. I have 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of paprika, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt. All right, what else do we got going on? In this bowl right here, I have 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And then let's go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. As always, I've gone ahead and I pre-measured out my seasoning, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the bowl. Go ahead and give that a nice little stir. That smells good already. And let's go ahead and just pour this over the pork. Alright, so I'm using a pretty thick cut of pork tenderloin, so I want this to marinate for as long as possible. So if you're in a rush, I say let it marinate for 30 minutes, but if you can do 4 to 6 hours or even overnight, the better. I'm going to set this aside and get started on the potatoes, and then we can put the pork in the oven in a little bit. Alright, so I have about 4 pounds of potatoes that I'm using, and I'm going to use a golden like white potatoes. These are really good, very creamy in texture. Like if you get like an Idaho potato, it's more dry, more starchier, so when you're eating a baked potato, you add a lot more butter to that. But this type of potato, you don't need as much, okay? Just a little lesson learned. If you're gonna eat a baked potato, try the gold potatoes, or they might call them Yukon as well. Eight hours later, we have all the potatoes cut up. So it's time to start seasoning them. I'm going to use pretty much the same seasonings, but I'm going to add 2 extra ones. So let's go ahead and get started on those. So I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon of garlic, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, and a half a teaspoon of salt. Alright, so I seasoned all the potatoes. Now I'm going to go ahead and use olive oil on these pans so that the potatoes don't stick. Just lightly coat it. And then let's get in here and mix these up. Alright, so my potatoes are done. Let's go ahead and put the pork in the oven, the potatoes in the oven, and then we'll come back and do the string beans. I'll see you back in a minute. Alright, so I have everything in the oven. I have it on about 300 degrees. I'm cooking everything nice and low and slow. So I want that pork to cook as, become tender. Pork is always a very tough meat, so you need to cook it slow. Just like when I cooked it in those pork bowls, I cooked it in the crock pot for about 6 to 8 hours. So we're gonna cook it for about 40 to 45 minutes. I'm gonna flip it, and then I found this barbecue sauce at my local grocery store, Stubbs. It has some great macros. It has total carbs is only 7 grams. A lot of the other ones I was looking at were about 20 to 25 grams of sugar. So this one was pretty like a no-brainer. So we'll use this on it to baste it a little bit. Kick it up a notch. Alright, I'll see you in about 40 to 45 minutes. So the timer went off, I took the pork out, it was cooking for about 35 minutes. Let's go ahead and put the barbecue sauce on it and then put it back in the oven. Alright? Again, I'm going to use about a half a cup of barbecue sauce. Then we're going to go ahead and just baste it. Okay, and I want to turn it. Look how thick these tenderloins are. So low and slow is the key. And then baste the other side. You can be very generous here if you want. And I still have some barbecue sauce left over that I'll put on when I'm done. All right, so I'm gonna put this back in the oven for about another 30 to 35 minutes. Let it finish cooking on 300 degrees. So again, we're cooking it very slowly, all right? Let's put it back in the oven. All right, we're at the home stretch. I went ahead and turned the oven for the last 5 minutes on broil. That way we can get some nice color on the potatoes as well as on the pork chops as well. In the meantime, let's go ahead and do everything for the string beans. So I have a leftover onion and red pepper and some scallions. So let's go ahead and chop that up. Now this onion's about the size of, it's about a medium-sized onion. The green onions, I'm going to use to top the pork chops. All right, so I have a pan over here preheating on medium-high heat. We'll go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, throw the peppers and onions in there, and then go ahead and throw some of the frozen green beans in there. All right. Now I'm using about 2 bags of string beans. This is about a pound each, so about 2 pounds of string beans. Like I said in my earlier videos, I grew up calling them string beans. You may call them green beans. They're the same thing. So I'm going to add about a ½ teaspoon of black pepper, a ½ teaspoon of onion powder, a ½ teaspoon of oregano, a ½ teaspoon of garlic powder, and a ½ teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt. You could use sea salt as well. I got this big thing from Costco for about $6 and it's lasted me almost, 7-8 months already. I don't use a lot of salt at once. So now one little trick I use when I do green beans or like greens, I add about a ½ tablespoon of agave to it. I'm telling you, you do it, you're gonna fall in love with it. Not too much now, just about a ½ tablespoon. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cover this and let this cook for about 6 to 8 minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and take the pork and the potatoes out and check on those to see how they're doing. Perfect. All right, remember I have some of that extra barbecue sauce laying around? Let's go ahead and baste that one more time. All right, so that looks amazing. Let's go ahead and cut it off the bone and start weighing it out. Everybody will get about 4 ounces of that, and we'll see how many meals we can make. So that was about 3.5 pounds of pork tenderloin with the bone. So take it off the bone, let's see how many meals we got. All right. Now these pork chops are about an inch thick when we got them, so these not your average like thin pork chop. So cooking time will depend on how thick your pork chop is too. Oh, look at that, it's coming right off the bone. So I zeroed out my scale. All right, 4 ounces. All right, so I cut up all of the pork. Pork's all cut up. I even topped it with a little bit of green onions. Now we're gonna go ahead and add the potatoes and the green beans. I'm gonna do about a ½ cup of the potatoes in each, and we'll weigh that out so you can kind of know exactly how much it is. It's roughly 76 grams of potatoes. All right, so let's go ahead and add the green beans. This I'm not too worried about. I love to get my vegetables in. I'm not real picky on having a certain amount. I don't do like a keto or Atkins diet. So my vegetables, I always want to eat as many as possible because there's so many good benefits to them. All right, but I'll measure it out for you guys. So it's about 120 grams of green beans, or about 4 ounces. If you can eat 4 ounces of protein, you should be able to eat 4 ounces of vegetables. All right, guys, we're all wrapped up. So these meals came out amazing. We have some pork tenderloins. Now remember, from what I said last time, pork tenderloin is just as lean as chicken breast. So it's a great alternative so you can switch it up so you don't always have to keep eating chicken. So we have some barbecue pork tenderloins with some green onions. I have about 4 ounces there. A half a cup of your roasted potatoes, which is about 75 grams. And then I have about 4 ounces of green beans, string beans, whatever you want to call them. About 4 ounces there, which is about 120 grams as well. So I'll put the macronutrients here. Other than that, guys, there's nothing left to say but stay focused, stay positive, and keep it moving. Good day, everybody. I gotta put this up.